time for the Week in Review. Look at national, regional, and local stories from the past week. Here's Brandon Hansen, Managing Editor of the Chewelah Independent, and Scott Allen, Managing Director of Northern Lights Public Radio.
On today's program, we're going to start off by letting Brandon introduce one of his co-workers from the Chewelah Independent.
Yes, this is our reporter, Colin Hafner, who went to school at Eastern Washington University, then went to the East Coast to study journalism at Maryland. So he's a big Terrapins fan, and he's back here in Meade, and he's been reporting for us for about a year-ish at the Independent, and he does a lot of investigative stuff and a lot of the newsy kind of deals there. So, and a little embarrassing fact, he was a walk-on football player at Eastern Washington University.
What's a walk-on football player?
He gets to carry all the water bottles.
Oh,
yep.
Is that a true story, Colin?
That is true, and I did carry a lot of water bottles, and I held a lot of winter jackets during the season too.
All right, so you're actually in Meade, and you come all the way to Chewelah to do investigative reporting.
I do, yes.
All right, is there anything you've got as a good tease, something you've uncovered that might be happening now?
Well, Colin's done a...
Way to cut him off.
Well,
no, we can't spill that. Don't listen to Scott.
Don't listen to Scott there.
See, I knew there was something.
Do you have anything in the hopper?
Well, yeah, I'll just say there's a story brewing that it's really good. Tune in.
Okay. Okay, I got a better question for you that doesn't put you on the spot. What is one of your favorite stories that you've uncovered as far as doing investigative journalism? Is that a tough
that's actually a pretty tough one. I actually enjoy quite a few of them. It's quite it's really fun. Simply because it's one of those things where you just kind of you dig deeper and you find more things, and it really just kind of takes you down a whole journey.
All right.
And then being able to wrap it up and put it together is really, really quite fun. And most of these stories actually. They come out that way, and they turn out to be really, really good stories to put together. I
imagine it'd be pretty fulfilling, when you actually get something to put, rather than just doing kind of a rip and read, or I'm retelling this, or I'm taking a press release and putting it in the paper, all the stuff that Brandon has to do all the time.
Right.
So I imagine that's kind of a different, fulfilling part of reporting. I'm sure, Brandon, you've done some of that too, where you get to investigate something and you come up with stuff that people don't know and get to share it.
Right, and frankly, I think one of the things I love the most about it is just being able to tell it in a story style. I mean, obviously with journalism, you want to take that objective role and get the facts and everything in there, but being able to put it in a sequence that really tells a story, that's actually really fun to do too.
Well, cool. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for all the work you do for us. All right, Brandon, you've got some quick hitters again this week that you're going to start off with. First up, parking in downtown Chewelah.
Yeah, how do you feel about parking in downtown Chewelah?
It's absolutely horrid.
It is.
It is. I hate, being someone that's living in the downtown area. I hate having to venture out to go to the post office and come down second there. It's your life in your hands anytime. I mean, you kind of like inch out into the crosswalk, and you probably get out there about 10 feet, and then you have to lean forward to see past the tails of the trucks that might be parked there on the corner to see if anyone is leaving their lane to go through the intersection.
Right.
So yeah, I see a problem.
Yeah, it's an issue. It's actually our front page story this week in the Independent. The city has done 2 public forums right now, trying to first showcase kind of their plans. They have 3 different plans, which include moving the center line, changing the angled parking in town to a more steeper angle, just so people can see better, and those travel lanes are bigger. And it would also include possibly putting angled parking on both sides of the street. So they have many options, and again, they're trying to either add more spots or just making it easier to see around those corners in downtown Chewelah. I've seen a lot of reaction just on our social media and in general. Some people, like my age, don't see really a parking issue because there's always side streets to park on and things like that. But I think for a lot of older people, it is an issue, especially during peak hours down here. I'm sure you've seen it when it's really busy down here and it's hard to find a parking spot. Getting close to a business you want to go into can be tough sometimes. It's not an issue for me to park a few blocks away,
but it might be somebody that's in a wheelchair or something.
Yeah. Or just if you're older, especially we get the winter climate and you got to waddle down the street. Because if you fall, that could be a bad thing for an older person. For me, it's just a bruise and a complaint, but for an older person, that could be
even for
really
you,
bad.
You, Brandon, you could land wrong, catch yourself with your wrist, break a wrist. Everybody slips and falls, and not good stuff.
And even just for people working downtown, like you said, you live downtown, just working downtown and finding a spot close to the business or, where you want to park safely and safe. Because, side streets at night, if you get done late or something like that, it always kind of stinks after it snows or something to try and find your car or things like that. So, and the city is trying to explore all options and kind of figure it out. I've seen some interesting suggestions. Somebody suggested the city hall takes out a lawn and just turns it into a big parking lot. Although that's kind of away from downtown, so I don't know how that would solve things there.
During maybe different events, it might help out a little.
Right, might help out a
parade
little there.
Day.
Yeah, parade day there. So. But otherwise,
it's a win-win if they can change that angle a little bit.
Yeah.
And if they do it on both sides, now they're really going to add in a lot more parking downtown. But I would say, for me personally, the thing at the top of the list is being able to see, and that's something you can't do safely, especially coming across to North 3rd Street, east or west.
Right. Yeah. It is true. And I've seen a suggestion to lower the speed limit, and I'm, through that downtown area, and I'm 100% supportive of that. They need to get people, because, like you say, you peek around the corner, some cars are going slow, and
the next person's doing 35 to the stoplight.
Yeah. So that gauging, like, okay, can I, can I get out?
Can I dart out now?
Yeah. That's always kind of.
Is it safe to dart out?
That's always a fun question to have. So.
It's that scene from Dodgeball. If you can dodge a car, you can dodge a ball.
You can live in Chewelah. So.
There you go.
Moving on to the next topic, the Midwest. Just yesterday and today, pummeled by cold temperatures. Not just a little bit of cold. We're talking like polar. It was colder in the Midwest yesterday than it was in the South Pole.
So one of our local residents, Eric Stevens, is a magician, and he's on tour. And he's in the Midwest, and he posted or sent a message the other day that said, "I'm going to my show. It's 10 below."
That's cold. I've seen photos of hinges of doors on the inside freezing over, like frosting over. And then I just looked up some of the numbers, and this polar vortex, the coldest temperature recorded yesterday, -77 Fahrenheit. And that is a kind of a real feel, so like wind chill and all that kind of takes into account. And that was in Thief River Falls, Minnesota.
Wow.
Chicago dropped down to -23 degrees. And this isn't just like for an hour or so. This is like the whole day or several hours of, this extremely cold temperatures. And that got me thinking, how cold was it in Chewelah? What's our all-time freezing cold? So you want to know what the all-time record low is?
Yes.
-38 degrees in Chewelah, Washington.
Wow. What year?
That was in 1950, so a little while ago.
Yeah, and they didn't read temperatures good back then.
Yeah, that's true. That temperature didn't work. And that's actually, looking at the state here, that is the second coldest temperature the state has ever experienced there. Wow. So looking at the longest is the -38. There was Mazama, Washington, had -40. Mazama. Excuse me, I've never been there. So, yeah. And
not many people have.
Uh,
Population, 23.
So, Chewelah, the second coldest place in Washington.
Wow.
I think that needs to...
So, and weather-wise, this polar front that's happening in the Midwest, we will see, if the patterns hold what the climatologists are saying, we're going to get a little touch of that going into Monday.
Right.
So we've got a wet weekend ahead, and then it looks like a daytime high, I think on Monday was 20, and that night -6.
Oh, that'll be fun.
So we are, and it looks like it's going to last 3 or 4 days. Hopefully those patterns won't hold.
Yeah, hopefully.
Because when they jump out past 5 days, they're usually always wrong. So cross your fingers.
Right. Let's cross them there. That's not fun. So.
All right. So Mike Leach picking up some options to stay.
Yeah, Mike Leach, WSU football coach, has agreed to stay at WSU until 2023. He led WSU to its best season ever this year in football, which I believe was 11 wins there. Good news for the Cougars because his name always gets floats around for openings at other schools and things like that, like he was going to leave WSU. But I think he's happy because he's the big dog there, and he can basically do and say what he wants, and nobody really questions him there. He certainly put WSU back in the driver's seat in terms of football. Before he was there, they were winning, 0 games, 4 games, 2 games, and he really turned it around. Now that program is doing really well. At least 8 wins or more are usually under Leach. I think he had a rough first season, but kind of turned it around there in Pullman, and I think that's good news for all the Coug fans around Chewelah. And the thing about Pullman, because some people... they complain about Leach because he hasn't won an Apple Cup or he hasn't done this or things like that. But it's hard to win in Pullman. I don't know how you recruit to Pullman and say, hey, come into this wheat field and play college football here. But he's managed to do it there.
All right, very cool.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have any opinions on Mike Leach? Yeah, he knows his football there. Do you have any opinions, Colin, on Mike Leach?
Well, I will say I am not so much a Mike Leach fan. This is not the greatest news for me. It's an irrational dislike for Mike Leach. It's by no means tied to his success or any. By no means is it tied to anything other than I didn't care for his hire at the time and the way it came in, and that's why I don't care for the guy.
So you've held a grudge, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
I like holding grudges.
I wish you're honest. That's good. All right. Something to worry about. Measles in Washington?
Yes.
Really?
With now it's up to 40 confirmed cases of measles in Washington. Governor Jay Inslee has declared a state of emergency because of the measles outbreak. Measles can be deadly. About 1 or 2 of every 1,000 children who get the disease will die from complications, according to the U.S. Centers of Disease Control. This kind of started, there were 34 cases of measles in Clark County, which is on the southern border of Washington across the Columbia River from Portland. That Vancouver area, basically.
Okay.
And 30 out of the 34 cases in Clark County, those people did not get their measles immunization there. And there is 1 case of measles in King County. It's a man in his 50s who had recently traveled to Clark County and has the worst luck in the world because apparently he picked up the disease. So.
Wow. What are the odds of that, huh?
Yeah, I know. Most of the people that got the measles, it's children 10 and under make up 25 of the cases, and 9 other children that are basically like teenagers, preteens, also have the measles there. It happened, they kind of traced it back to a person infected with the measles virus attended a Portland Trailblazers game in Oregon during the outbreak, meaning that, contagious people that caught it may not picked up the disease, but didn't get affected by it. They traveled through the Portland International Airport, as well as hospitals, schools,
nice guy,
stores, churches.
So he's patient 0.
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
It's a easily spread, infected, breathe, cough, sneeze, which, we can see that here because everybody in Chewelah has a flu right now. And not everybody is immune to the measles, basically. And it's contagious. It spreads. People get sick. They may not realize at first that they have the measles. So, I wouldn't say some people are complaining like, why is the media blowing this up and stuff, but it can be a deadly disease. And before we immunized, and before we really attacked the disease, it was basically the most easily preventable disease. It was the deadliest easily preventable disease in the country there. So
what's scary though about this is that 4 people who were immunized still got it.
Well, the thing about that, though, was they just didn't have the info on if they got
actually immunized for it or not.
Got the vaccine or not. So they just didn't have that info, basically. And the thing about this is the people that receive vaccines, usually you need about 92 to 95% of the population to get a vaccine in order to have, quote-unquote, herd immunity, meaning the disease really can't outbreak or anything. Clark County has just 76.5% of its kindergartners immunized. So
now I thought you couldn't even get into school unless you had your immunization.
Well, there's a lot of homeschoolers and things like that.
Well,
there's
I meant
probably
into
a lot
public
of
school.
Right.
Okay.
Right. A lot of you can get your exemptions, things like that. So it's kind of a hotbed of anti-vaccinations down there.
This is really a tough one because some people don't want to vaccinate their kids.
Right.
And I really have, how can you blame those people for not vaccinating their kids? It's a double-edged sword because there is a certain percentage of people who get different vaccines that die from them. And it's a very high percentage, actually. If you look at it, you're going, really? And I can't remember which one it was, but 1 out of 100 people die when they get that vaccine. Well, that seems a little too high to even risk it to me.
Right.
I don't like those odds. I want like 1 out of 1,000,000.
Right.
And so you can't blame them. And then our pharmaceutical companies have proven. How come we don't trust them in any case?
Right.
But all of a sudden, when it comes to immunizations, we're supposed to trust the government and the pharmaceutical agencies? I get the people that don't do it. How can we trust them? Because they're obviously never worked in our best interest.
Right, I get what you're saying there. The pharmaceutical country, companies.
And me personally, I saw I noticed the other day on my medical account, it says I needed to get the shingles vaccine, and I'm going, okay, that can be really bad for an adult, because that's the adult version of chicken pox,
right?
And it can be horribly painful and bad for an adult and dangerous. But at the same time, I react bad to a lot of medications I've gotten from doctors. Do I want that concoction? That's a tough one. I can't make up my mind.
Yeah, and that's a tough go. I would say, though, that the problem with this is these unvaccinated people get the disease and then they go and spread it around.
And that is the big issue. And that's, I think, what a healthcare provider would say is you're nuts not to get it.
Right. Exactly.
But say that to the person who just had a child die who was vaccinated.
Right.
No matter how rare it is.
I'm wondering what the numbers are. I don't think it's 1 in 100 because that would be.
There was and that wasn't a death. I think it was probably like a reaction to it, where your arm's going to swell up and you're going to break out in hives or whatever it happens to be.
1 in 100 are allergic to it or something.
I mean, if we, I don't want to slow down the show, but anybody can Google that, and you'll be really surprised at the amount of deaths that happen from immunizations.
Right.
I would say 1's probably too many.
Yeah, because it's supposed to help you there. But,
it's like playing Russian roulette. Okay, maybe it is 1 in 1,000,000. Maybe it's 1 in 10 million.
Right.
But sooner or later, that bullet comes up for one of us.
Right. But then how many people end up dying from a preventable
because you
disease?
didn't. I had the measles and I spread it all over Portland. And wouldn't you feel bad if you did something like that? And this is the double-edged sword. Now somebody died because you weren't vaccinated.
Right.
So,
and
just as tough.
40 cases is not a huge number, but I think what you're dealing with is, especially for very young children, it can be extremely deadly. So you've got to worry about that.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Now, boy, we have a very dark show this week.
Are you moving on to me?
Yes, Scott. Can you give us the bad news?
Yes. Here's your headline. People more likely to die in Eastern Washington. Did I do that good?
You did it.
All
good,
right.
Yeah.
Researchers at Washington State University's Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine have found that mortality rates in 10 of the 11 most common causes of death are higher on the state's east side than on its west side. So in other words, people in Eastern Washington more likely to die from cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, unintentional injuries, Brandon, chronic lower respiratory diseases, stroke, diabetes, suicide, chronic liver disease, and, yes, the flu. Only cause of death in which Eastern Washington registers better than its counterpart is drug overdose. So they're saying things possibly west for that.
Yeah, a little worse. And I think
side.
it's actually pretty even. The west is just slightly higher. And, that probably has to do with bigger population centers. Drugs are bigger issues in the urban centers, just merely because there's more people there, easily transferred to a lot of different people, yeah.
Sure. Jonathan Espenscheid, Associate Dean and co-author of the study, said the data factored in people's ages and adjusted the numbers to exclude deaths of the very young and the very old to get more relevant numbers. Offer Amron, assistant professor and study co-author, speculates Eastern Washington's smaller and more isolated communities have less access to health care, contributing to the discrepancies.
I completely agree with that. Just being able to get in to see a doctor, you could end up, waiting even a little while, even like a day or two, could mean, life or death sometimes, because you're like, hey, I have this issue. Okay, well, we can get you in next week kind of deal. And that, who knows how you're going to be feeling or what you're going to be doing that next week. So I could see that being a big issue around here. And then are you going to drive to Colville for that? Are you going to drive to Spokane or something like that? Having access or having it being harder to access is probably going to make you think twice about calling that doctor and saying, I feel fine, it's not that bad, and then you end up having an issue.
It was something ridiculous yesterday on the morning show, like 60% of men will wait at least 30 days to go to the doctor when they have a health problem.
Right.
That we put that kind of stuff off. Now, in rural communities and the things you're saying, add that to it, and you could be looking at some problems.
Yeah, because why do you want to take off work? You can't do that. And then again, it's not like you just go to the doctor's office in town here. You got to go down to Spokane for a specialist or something like that. It's going to be
turns into a big hassle.
Yeah, it turns into a hassle.
Coordination and all that kind of stuff, especially if you got kids.
And I like that they mentioned the age thing, because one thing that was floated is a lot more people retire on the east side. It's an older population, more rural, and they kind of took that out of the equation. So I'm glad they took that out of the issues in terms of how they did this study, because I'd imagine if you factor that in, the death rates would be even higher there with an older community with more health issues.
Yeah. Professor Amron said the differences in mortality rates were greater than he even expected, and said take for instance unintentional injuries. If you take 100,000 people each from Eastern Washington and Western Washington, roughly 45 will die from accidents in the east, and roughly 36 will die from accidents in the west. You think that's proximity to hospitals?
Yes, I could see that, because what if you get injured here in Chewelah? St. Joseph's cannot, address your injury, and you have to fly down to Spokane. You're talking several minutes, if not an hour or two, before you get life-saving treatment. I could see how those accidents would be more deadly there. You have to factor in car accidents too. The more extreme weather we have around here, the west doesn't have those icy roads as much. Increased traffic, so when they do get snow, usually they shut things down instead of just saying, hey, we got to deal with this. And then you talk about getting to a hospital. If you get in a car wreck in the odd corners of Stevens County, it's going to be a while before you get care.
Yeah. I think about that when I'm up at my place in Kettle Falls and stuff, and especially if somebody's using a chainsaw. I had my eldest daughter and her boyfriend up there helping me one day, and he's whipping around a chainsaw, and I'm thinking, I told him, and he was being kind of careless, and I said, be careful, because if you were to, cut yourself and start bleeding profusely, you will die before we can get to Colville.
Right.
So you got to think about those kind of things, especially when you're out in the woods and stuff, and be prepared.
Well, and that's just a lifestyle too around here. People are outdoors more probably manual labor kind of deals that they're doing, whether you're talking a chainsaw or something. It's just something you have to do around here. And then you compare it to more urban populations where, they may go to the coffee shop to get their coffee, but, they're not chopping firewood. They're not, doing...
Their lives aren't as dangerous.
Well, yeah, but it's true. I mean, growing up in Chewelah, how many times have been like, oh, this was dangerous. Why did we do this? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've watched what my dad's doing and just shake my head like, oh, goodness, okay.
All right, what happens in Chewelah stays in Chewelah, Brandon. Don't throw anybody under the bus.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, my favorite part of the show, it's Brandon Hanson and Parting Shots.
Parting Shots here. Did you know one of our local state reps, Joel Kretz, has suggested that they put a wolf sanctuary on Bainbridge Island, which is a very ritzy community on the west side. I think he's kind of fed up with the wolf situation here in northeastern Washington. We kind of talked about the hounding last week in terms of the not being able to use certain animals and stuff. So I think this certainly was kind of a troll move. This wasn't like, I don't think he's being very serious, but he suggested putting a wolf sanctuary in the middle of Bainbridge Island, which is very populated.
Well, I don't know. I would say after 14 years, that's probably Joel's best idea.
Oh, that's hard. Oh, you can send your complaints to Scott.
Hey, we got wolves, and they're all safe.
Yeah,
on an island.
Island, this Wolf Island there. So, and I believe one of the reps that had introduced legislation concerning wolves from the west side lives on Bainbridge Island, so it's kind of
that was kind of his jab.
Yeah, that was kind of his jab at it. But it's getting a lot of shares, and people are talking about it.
It's all in fun.
But it's
sorry, Joel.
It's all sorry, Joel. And moving on, are you going to watch the Super Bowl?
No,
Do you know who is in the Super Bowl?
I think it's the Yankees and the Pirates.
Yes, the Yankees and the Pirates. We have the young L.A. Rams who just recently moved from St. Louis, so I'm sure St. Louis feels great about this. And we have the Patriots who've been in the Super Bowl a million times.
Weren't the Rams in L.A. before, though, once?
Yes.
Okay, hey, see, I know a little bit about football.
See, there you go. Right. Their quarterback, Tom Brady, is, I'm pretty sure, 56 years old, and he's still the quarterback. So.
And he's with the guy that deflates things, right?
Yeah, he's the guy that deflates things.
I know all about football.
Yeah, you got it down there.
All right, so the Yankees are not playing, though.
Yeah, the Yankees are not playing. You got a prediction? Just pick who you think who's gonna win there.
I would say whichever team the guy that likes to deflate things is on is going to win.
Okay, Patriots are going to win.
Patriots.
Colin, do you have a suggestion on who is going to win the Super Bowl?
I'm going with the Rams on this one.
Why is that?
They can't even find their way home.
Yeah.
It's the local factor. They have 3 Eastern Washington Eagles on their roster. Ooh. And we all know what kind of winners the Eagles are these days.
Yeah, that's true. Eastern Washington did make the national title game this year, so you got to give them credit there. I'm going to say the Patriots win it.
All right, can I switch my answer and go with him?
Yeah, you can switch your answer.
I'm going Colin.
I'm going to say Tom Brady wins his 6th Super Bowl and goes down as the greatest quarterback in the NFL.
Wow.
And how fitting that the NFL has a cheater as the greatest quarterback in the NFL.
All right, I'm going to switch now. After everything you said, I'm going to Brandon.
Okay, there we go. So
Yankees are going to win, yeah!
It's kind of weird, Yankees are going to win. The Super Bowl party, that's always a big deal, but it feels like more and more it doesn't have as much buzz around it as it once did.
No, it's got this kind of same feel to it that Christmas has the past couple of years. It's like, really, it's here already? I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I don't want to deal with that. So,
really, I got to have friends over?
Yeah, I got to get all this food. Got to watch a game we don't really care about. All right. But, oh well. And, have fun, people.
Patriots and the Rams. There you go.
Patriots and
Enjoy
Rams
your
on Sunday. Super Bowl Sunday. If you wonder what day it's going to be
I knew it would today.
Super Bowl Sunday.
It's always Super Bowl Sunday, right? They don't change that, do they?
No. Fun fact, I think, isn't Patriots and the Rams where Brady got his start, too?
Yeah, that was way back in 2001.
Wow.
That is when the Patriots won their first Super Bowl there.
Well, that's kind of a crazy, interesting tidbit.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, way back in the dark ages, 2001.
Yep. All right. That's our show for this week. I'm Scott.
I'm Brandon.
And who's the new guy?
Colin.
Thanks for listening to the Week in Review with Brandon Hansen, Managing Editor of the Chewelah Independent, and Scott Allen, Managing Director of Northern Lights Public Radio. Past episodes are in video format on the Chewelah Independent's website and on KCHW's YouTube channel. This program was recorded and filmed at the KCHW FM studios in Chewelah, Washington.